I see a lot of parallels between parkour and rollerblading. Actually, I mean, I think
Mm.
there's different, obviously distinctions that are different, but like some of like maybe the, I don't know, movements, flips, and like technicalities kind of remind me of one another in a way. Do you see any
Oh
parallels
yeah.
there or no?
Yeah, yeah, big time, big time. Like, yeah, I keep joking with my mates. Like, I've been doing parkour for so long, so it's like I can joke about this. But like, I always say rollerblading's like level two parkour. It's like once you've graduated parkour, you get the blades out, and then it's like, oh, because you can do like super human stuff, where because you're able to travel so much quicker. So if you're doing a jump, like a big running precision, as we call it, which is just like a jump, literally,
Yeah,
that you can maybe I don't know. This is like really good going. You could maybe crack like I don't want to say this and be wrong, but like maybe 19 feet or like 20 feet would be like top end. Whereas on blades, like if you look at that Eric Perkett clip where he done like that double, is it like the 12 flat 12 or whatever?
yeah,
That's like you would never be able to physically do that running. No matter
yeah,
it could be Usain Bolt, you ain't clearing that. You ain't coming near. So it's like
yeah.
it's like yeah, you have this like extra boost from the wheels, and then yeah, there's so much crossover. Just I noticed as soon as I started with a friend right who doesn't have any parkour background, and he's cool. He's good at like moving around and shit, but when it comes to jumps, he has no idea. And when he comes to like falling over, no idea. And it's like I've been able to figure that out quite quickly how to jump, and I've been able to I can jump up to something that's like sort of like maybe like chest height sort of thing, maybe a bit lower, maybe a bit lower. I'm kind of gassing myself up a bit, but I could jump up quite high and
Yeah.
be all right. Whereas he wouldn't be able to do that. And like falling over, I just know how to fall, and that's the biggest thing I've gained from parkour is knowing how to fall. Also, kind of like ideas for lines. But yeah, there is so much crossover, especially when you see someone like Eugen Enin, and like you see he does all the sort of vaulty stuff, and I love that style because it's sort of like reminiscent of parkour.
Yeah, he like, yeah, Eugen like actively incorporates parkour, and it's funny to see because like I sometimes when I watch those like really crazy parkour videos, I'm like, what would it happen if these guys like learned to put on some blades
Yeah.
and like
Yeah,
didn't even like adapt to like our culture of skating or like the style or they just like do this on some
yeah,
blades, but just like it's just like, yeah, I always like think about that, and you see like some bladers embrace that. Like, you see some like the, Canadian guys doing that in Eugen, like you say. And it's really,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that kind of stuff's really good for crossing over. And maybe like, if he, like you said, he's one of your favorite skaters and maybe for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an era like in parkour where it was like 2008, 2009, where people coming into parkour had backgrounds in different sports. So it was like you would get into parkour because you did, I don't know, like break dancing, and you saw someone do parkour and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. So you'd get into it through that. So you had this whole background of breakdancing, and you came to parkour and you were like, well, I can't do that. I can't do this thing that this person's doing, but I can be on my hands and do like jumps to my hands and shit. So when we had this like beautiful golden era where you were getting all these people with different backgrounds coming into the sport, and it completely changed the sport and the direction it went in because you had all these different ideas. Now parkour in the space it's in now is like it's had it has kids that are getting into parkour as their first sport, so that they've never done anything prior to it. So parkour is kind of got a definitive, almost like that is what parkour is. But I'd say in 2010s it was a little bit maybe looser. Like two people doing parkour would look quite different, or they could look quite different. Now it's like there is sort of a defined style, and I think it's really interesting when you go into a sport having had a background in something else. Because, like, say you were an incredible contemporary dancer, I often like seeing like you get sometimes it's rare, but you get like women that come into parkour that have contemporary dance backgrounds or like ballet or something like that,
Mm.
and they just move in a way that you've never seen before. And it's so sick because you just have this completely different attitude, and you're like, oh damn, I never thought about it like that. And there's a free runner who got into uh, rollerblading maybe like I think he's always done it, but he started doing videos with rollerblade, and he's called Daniel Baca, but he didn't do tons of stuff, but he did a bit. And you could just see like instantly this dude like had a different way of doing it because of his background. And it would be so interesting to see more and more people like coming into like I would like to see more freerunners do rollerblading because I just think you would see a very different like take on it.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I think that like most communities probably could be subjected to this, but like definitely ours has like in certain stages or maybe even currently, but I think it's gotten like way more diverse in like the approach lately. But we've been like in this kind of box of how what skating is and how we are defined as rollerbladers. Like, you know, we grind down
Mm,
rails, like we jump gaps, and at least in a certain area. And then now that's kind of been opening up over like the past few years. People are like more experimenting with like different styles and just kind of thinking out of the box a bit. And yeah, I think so. Like when I see like the free runner guys, I'm like, if these people just learn how to skate, then it's just like they could just take this stuff and
yeah,
go flying even further. Like maybe not like some of that crazy roof stuff where there's like, you know, a 300-foot drop off the roof sliding on the, like some of that like far distance, like Superman hand plan stuff, like to front flip, like what could be achieved in
yeah.
that. It'd probably be like the most viral thing ever, you know?
Hmm.
Honestly, it would be nuts, and you would get free runners doing roof gaps, like for sure. If roof gaps were a real like they were a real thing for maybe the first like from 2010, maybe a bit earlier than that.
Mm.
2008, I would say to like mid 2010s, and then like people don't do roof gaps as much now. It's kind of because it is just really it's one thing, like it's a gap between a roof. But
Mm.
I think if people got blades and they were parkour background, they would have to try a roof gap. Like someone would do it. Have you ever seen anyone do like a legit roof gap, like with a death drop on blades? Is that ever happened?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
there's been some and like that go all the way back to like the old days, but in terms of like maximizing its potential, I would say no. Like
I kind of don't want to
there
encourage
are
it,
some
but it
big
would be
ones. Yeah,
mad.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
me too. Like I've always had like being like a New Yorker, I always had like this like kind of like cool fantasy of like you just see like one building to another building
Yeah.
and just someone like doing like a bio 540 like a misty right through. But you know, you got to find the right spot and the right person. You got to be as careful as you can. But you know what I mean?
that's the
I
thing,
think
man. It's like there's always been a bit of a point of contention in parkour is the old roof gaps. Like it was always this thing. It was like this sort of unsaid thing that you can only do it when you've been doing it for a long period of time. You would never encourage someone new to the sport to ever even think about it. And
right.
like, yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, it was a weird one. Like when I was 20 and that, I was doing some stuff I look back and I'm like, I would never fucking think of doing that again.
Hmm.
And like the thing is, it's like, you know, you're 20, you're ballsy, and you're just like you're up for it. You don't care. And
Mm.
then you look back and you're like, damn man, like it could have just been a slippy takeoff. So it's one of them ones like you don't want to encourage people to do it, but at the same time, yeah, you know, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
That's very
Um,
common with us too. We used to always look back at shit like 10, 15 years ago and like stuff that we wouldn't do like roof gaps or huge drop rails and hammers and stuff like that. It's stuff
Yeah,
that you just like it was of its time and of its era and people can still do it now. Personally, I'm not trying to do shit like that, but you know,
yeah,
there's still that space in it in skating for that. I'm sure in parkour, there are still some people probably doing roof jumps and shit like that, but it's
yeah,
another direction that's way more welcoming because people coming into parkour, I'm sure, and skating too, they don't want to necessarily see their kids jumping off of roofs off the bat and stuff like that. You know, it's more
yeah.
lightweight, more welcoming stuff to do.
I found it interesting that like the mushroom blading, like the wizard blading guys were kind of new in a sense. Like I would have thought like because forgive me for my ignorance, but I'd have thought that would have been like old school rollerbladers would have probably had that similarish style because it would have been taken from I don't know, like ice skating, maybe, like,
Hmm.
because it's kind of like some of the stuff they do, they're like spinning around and doing all these like slides and stuff. To me, it's like, how did that take so long for people to kind of popularize? Because I think it's so sick what they do. And I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And it's sort of like that really adds variety to a line. Like, I feel like Eugen Enin's part in that recent video, he was like sort of doing a bit of that stuff. And it was
Hmm.
like between these other things. So he'd like do maybe some traditional like aggressive thing, and then he would do all this, and then it just
yep.
like tied it together so nicely. And it's like, how has that
Mhm.
taken that long to figure out?
That's an
No,
excellent point.
no, it's true. It's true, and like I can give you my theory on that. Before blading got into the area of like aggressive, it was like this rec thing where people were using it to like, do off-season hockey and some people off-season skiing, like, you've discovered in your videos. And people, I think, were more embracing the rolling aspects of it during that because it was such a new thing. When it went to aggressive, and then there was like this kind of, aggressive was young, and there was like, skateboarders who had been skating for however long at the park, and it was a bit of a rivalry came to be. I think a lot of the
Mm.
people in aggressive, as we spoke about this with Joey McGarry on our podcast, but we're trying to like distance ourselves from that kind of stuff, those kind of movements,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
be like, yeah, no, we're like actually like super. It was like hyper masculine, like, or as like as Joey McGarry said, like, look how masculine we are. Look
Yeah.
how
How heterosexual we are.
so it
The
was like we
boys, just for the fucking boys.
yeah. So I think there was like a more like whether it was conscious or subconscious, like pushed by companies or not. That was kind of like the
Yeah,
ethos. Like,
I'm kind of picturing it now. Like you've got some guy, he's like everyone else in the park's like hammering like these massive rails. They're doing like these gangster shit, and you got your boy doing
yeah.
like fairy spins,
Yeah.
like spinning around. He's got his hands up. I can see why you might not do it.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
Yeah.
I feel like nowadays people are a bit more embracive of like I don't know. It's like I get it because I think back in the day it was like everything was kind of lame if it looked, like the mainstream way of doing something or something like that. It's probably got some kind of tie in with that, and so it's kind of like
Mhm.
lame. And if you were seen to do that, but now it's like people. I think they've eased off on that attitude a little bit, and then now it's just sort of a bit more open because parkour had a
Mhm.
very like I don't know. It had like a moment where there was a lot of attitudes behind what was like cool and what wasn't cool, and like it depended entirely on like the clique you were in almost. Like in my clique, in like my circle where I did parkour, if you were seen to do I don't know a flip, literally like a front flip, people would like
Mhm.
laugh at you, they'd like scoff at you. It's like oh
Mhm.
that shit's so lame, like you're being a gymnast. And then
Right.
now it's like the stuff that people do with flips is like the impressive thing. And so it's funny how the attitudes change and just become a bit more embracing and I suppose open minded to like different takes on it.
Yeah, no, it's funny because it's like I think at that maybe parkour had the same experience like with the don't do the flips, but there's like this like struggle to like really define what it is that you are in that space. Like this is what we are. But it's funny that
Mm.
thing that you do to define what you are is also the thing that kind of prevents you from growing outward because that diversity in like approaches is the thing and like that helps it grow and like incorporates other styles and techniques like
Really?
like with skating, and we were like pushing like trying to jump the biggest stuff, do like the biggest drop rail, and like do like the gnarliest switch up or whatever.
Mm.
um One of my friends I think astutely pointed out that like we did all that stuff and Eric Perquette jumped like that 30 feet thing, and then people were still like these fruit booters are lame. So it's like, well, might as well
You just
might
can't win, man.
yeah, it's like well, might as well have fun, right? Like it's like, well,
Yeah.
if whatever it is you can't win anyway, you could do like the crazy. So it's like I think everyone threw up their hands and was like, let's just like explore it and have fun. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's weird that was the thing that ended up like helping push like the growth of it a little bit, and maybe that would be the same case in
Yeah,
parkour.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you made me think of William Spencer. He's like a skateboarder who stunt doubled uh, Spider-Man. Don't know why it took me so long. I made a whole documentary on him, and he,
Saw
so
that.
he had this time where he was like, he literally got like not ostracized, but just people would chat shit on him doing stuff, and he was like mixing parkour with skateboarding. It was legit. Like there was nothing even like I can see why someone might think doing like spins on rollerblades is slightly lame. I can understand vaguely,
Mhm.
but what he was doing was like just gnarly. It just looked sick, and yet still because what he was doing was different. People were like, "Oh, this is circus tricks, man. This ain't real skateboarding." Lo
Mhm.
and behold, he goes on to be like an icon and whatever. But like, it is weird. Like, I wonder how many people listen to that. I don't know actually, because maybe that refines people. Because I think sometimes that gives people like a fire. Because the way he explained it was because everyone was so like on his case about it. That made him like, "Nah, fuck you. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna like do it as well as I can." Whereas maybe if it was super accepted, perhaps he wouldn't have pushed as hard. It was also the same for uh, Ryan Williams, scooter BMX dude.
Mhm.
He used to get clowned on for being a scooter kid, like absolutely hounded.
Is this the
And yeah,
Australian guy?
Oh yeah. Like he's
Yeah.
on Nitro
Yeah, the
Circus,
Nitro
I
Circus
think,
kid.
with
Yeah.
like
Yeah, he was
Chris
rollerblading
Happy
too.
and
He was doing like double or triple backflips or something. Like it was
Hmm.
something crazy.
dude, like I saw he posted a random clip the other day. Like that's his original sport. So when he was really little, he had blades, and like
Hmm.
planning to do a video with him at some point. But so he did like this Webster. I don't know what you guys call it, but like he was just pumping like a bowl, and then
Hmm.
when he come up on the back part, he did like a front flip inwards there, like just a casual throwaway clip on his Instagram, and I was like, damn, like he's just legit. He could so easily be a good rollerblader. And I'm really surprised that because he hangs out, I'm guessing he hangs out with Chris Haffey on the
Hmm.
Nitro Circus. I'm surprised he hasn't gone down that route much more because, as I was saying, he went from scooter, being a scooter kid that people laughed at, ended up achieving like the top of the top there, and then put his scooter down for a little bit. He still scoots, but then picked up the BMX and just because of his attitude and because of his like approach to scootering, he brought that towards BMX, and he was doing tricks that the commentators in the X Games were like, yeah, I have no idea what we call this. Like, I don't know what that is. But and he was like, he won like gold. He broke a record. It was like, and he'd been BMXing for like 6 months, and he won gold at the X Games. And I
What?
think he got like three. Yeah, it was something like that. I might be getting some of the dates mixed up, but it was something like that. And yeah, the dude's crazy, and it's because he just did his own thing. And like when people were kind of clowning on him, he used that as a bit of a fire. So maybe a little bit of bullying's good, not too much, but a little bit helps.